What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. Moving on to Oklahoma City, I want to talk a little bit about Shai's first playoff series first, just kind of focus in on him and then look at Oklahoma City as like a whole. You know, I was really curious to see what Shai's first playoff run would look like as the number one guy. He kind of falls into a category of players similar to James Harden, Trae Young, Luka Doncic that are very heliocentric in the sense that so many possessions involve Shai picking on a matchup, dribbling, 15 to 20 times on a possession before he gets to his spot. And I've always had this kind of theory that when heliocentric players, they face the same perimeter defenders over and over and over and over again, that they have the propensity to get solved sometimes. And I thought we saw that in a big way with James Harden, and I think we've seen that quite a bit with Trae Young over the years. But specifically with Luka was the first guy that kind of dawned on me where it's like, he's got some resiliency because he's just willing to attack from anywhere. Like, yeah, he might control all these possessions, but like if he needs to go to the mid-range, he can go to the mid-range. If he needs to go to the post, he can go to the post. If he needs to work from beyond the three-point line, he can work from beyond the three-point line. If he needs to function more as a playmaker against a loaded-up defense, he can function more as a playmaker against a loaded-up defense. Whereas with James Harden, it was like all live dribble, all ISO and pick and roll, all from the wings, all step-back threes and layups. And then he kind of sorted added a floater towards the tail end of the Houston run, right? So like that was in a lot of ways what I thought led to James Harden having some struggles. Specifically with Shai, what I was really curious about is he's not a guy we really think about as over like a absolute top tier athlete. And he doesn't have the size that Luka has. Like Luka has like a really, really big frame. And so like, as long as he can control angles and leverage, like he's just so damn big that it's kind of like that final possession. Like Lou Dort couldn't stop Luka from getting 2 feet, damn near right underneath the basket before Shai came in and helped, because Luka is just big as hell and there's not a whole lot you can do about that, right? So I was really curious to see a slender, not top tier athlete type of player like Shai to see how he would look in his first playoff series. And he just passed with absolute flying colors. No one can guard the guy. His hesitation, start-stop movements keep everybody off balance. I talked about this at the end of the last night's show in the mailbag, but he has this move where like he'll go between the legs kind of slow, but then as he goes between the legs kind of slow, like he'll be down in this lungy looking stance where he's like got all of his kinetic energy just kind of like saved up, right? And then when the ball gets to that other hand, whether it's right to left or left to right, just like somewhere right, like a split second after he gets it in his left hand, he'll just take off. And he gets like a lot of separation with that first step and he can just beat people off the dribble extremely easily. Like there was a play in the first half where I think he was being guarded by Derrick Jones Jr., but he got screened and Derek Lively was in the drop. And he just went right around Derek Lively so easily, got into the paint, and I think he ended up missing a reverse layup on this play. But I remember sitting there thinking, he has not had any trouble getting to his spots over the course of this series. And like one of the unique things about Shai too, and what was the phrase that I think I heard Richard Jefferson saying that the Thunder, staff and players, they referred to him as like Mr. Consistency or Mr. Consistent or something like that. And a big part of that is he's willing to work close to the basket. When you're taking shots, again, like I talk about 3-level scoring, Shai's not taking a ton of like 20 footers, right? Like it's a lot of like, he'll take the threes, like he'll take 24 footers, but like for the most part, his jump shooting is like 15 feet and in. And so when you're taking the majority of your jumpers 15 feet and in, those are just higher percentage shots. It's like 4-level scoring, right? It's like there's threes, there's the rim, there's long twos, and then there's short twos. And so because Shai is able to get to his spots against basically anybody, and because he can hit, close to 50% of those shots, there's a resiliency with Shai that I found really impressive. Like I think his worst game in this series, if I remember correctly, I think he went 10 for 23. Like that's not that bad of a game, right? Like there is a resiliency with Shai that shined through in a big way, and you can point a lot of different directions for where things went wrong for Oklahoma City in this series. None of them were Shai. He was right there with Luka and Kyrie the entire series and outplayed them in many cases. Shai was incredible Can't say enough about how impressed I was by him in his first playoff run. He has just continued his ascent on schedule from what we saw a couple years ago when he first started flashing that superstar potential. Talking about Oklahoma City looking forward, a couple of things. Don't worry too much about the downsides of what you saw from Oklahoma City this year. Some of the execution errors, some of the drive and kick decision making that was so poor, some of the rough nights that like Jalen Williams had where he was struggling to kind of read the floor and see what was happening around him. So much of that was young players. Now, I understand that the theme of this playoff run has been young players doing well, but the truth of the matter is it's not the early 20 guys that have been doing well, except for Anthony Edwards. It's mostly been the late 20s guys that have been controlling the show here in this postseason run. Like these Thunder players are excruciatingly young compared to a lot of these other teams out there. And when we've seen other young teams make runs like the Thunder in 2012, there were a lot of veteran presences on the roster, guys like Kendrick Perkins, guys like Derek Fisher. They had an element of experience in their rotation that was substantial and something that I think made that team different. So like you're going to just get several orders of magnitude better next year just by getting another year, another off season of workouts for all these guys. And like Chet, unbelievable defensive playoff run, but hey man, the 3-point shot's not as consistent as it needs to be. So he's got to get in the gym this summer and turn himself from a shooter into a maker. He's got to be a guy that you can't just live with the late closeout on, but a guy that you absolutely have to be there on the catch or he's going to burn you. That's an opportunity for him to get some work. Jalen Williams, I think he learned a little bit about the difference in intensity in these environments and how getting separation for these shots and making reads when you drive into traffic are a little bit tougher. Another offseason for him and another 82 games of reps will go a long way towards helping, right? Now, as far as the personnel gap goes, we talked about it all season long. No matter how many games the Thunder won, no matter how many times they beat a really good team at the top of the league, I consistently said, you can't win in the NBA playoffs if you're that bad at defensive rebounding. And they just do not have a big forward that they can play alongside Chet so that they have a physical profile that allows them to contend on the defensive glass. And that's just something that they're going to have to address this offseason. I think that they're like the perfect candidate for a team that I think should be throwing everything on the table for a guy like Lauri Markkanen. I think if they can get a big four, and specifically a guy who specializes playing off the ball. Your on-ball creators are great. Shai is perfect. Jalen Williams is perfect. That everything is great about that. The guy that you need to find somebody who is a professional off-ball player, but one that can help you on the defensive glass and can help you in low-man possessions. I think Lauri Markkanen would be perfect. He's like the absolute like shoe-in, like cannot conceive of a better basketball fit for that power forward spot next to Chet. He's big, he's strong, he's a very good athlete. He would be in a role that accentuates what he's great at. I think that that's the kind of direction they need to look to go. But everything else is the sky's the limit for this Oklahoma City team. You love the depth. Lou Dort played Luka into two of the worst playoff games I've ever seen him play in Game 1 and Game 4. That's a credit to Lou Dort. I saw Lou Dort make Luka lose his composure in a way I've never seen him lose his composure before. You've got one of the best big perimeter defenders in the league. Now he's got to work on not fouling as much. He's got to kind of find a happy medium in there, but he's going to. You've got everything looks great. You just have to upgrade that Josh Giddey position into a bona fide legitimate two-way power forward that can kind of anchor things for you on the front line. Great season, though, for Oklahoma City. Really think they're going to be a perennial powerhouse in this league. Just too young and a little too small, and a couple of critical weaknesses that did them in this season.